I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. This happened when I was 17 on a night when my parents were out. Around 11 p.m., I was watching TV in the living room when I suddenly heard a knock at the front door. It was late, and my body tensed up for a moment. But then I thought maybe it was just a friend playing a prank. I didn't open the door. Instead, I checked the doorbell camera. There was no one there. I felt a little uneasy, but I brushed it off as nothing and tried to focus on the TV. A few minutes later, I heard another noise this time, a light tapping sound coming from the back window. My heart dropped. Slowly, I walked over and peeked through the blinds. A man was standing there. He was just standing under the dim glow of a streetlight, staring at me, as if he was waiting for me to open the window. Then, the moment our eyes met, he smiled and waved. I froze. My breath caught in my throat, and I immediately shut the blinds. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and called my parents. They told me to call the police, but when I checked the doorbell camera, again, he was gone. The house was silent except for the sound of my own pounding heartbeat. Was he still nearby, or had he already left? When the police arrived, they searched the area but didn't find anything unusual. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. Nothing. The night passed, and somehow I managed to fall asleep. But the next morning, as I stepped outside, my stomach dropped. Right in front of the door, there were muddy footprints, and on top of them, a small piece of paper. You seem fun. I'll come visit again soon. My hands trembled as I picked up my phone and called the police again. Minutes later, a patrol car pulled up in front of my house. 2 officers approached, and I handed them the note, recounting everything from the night before. They checked the yard and reviewed the doorbell camera footage, and that's when something strange happened. There was nothing on the footage. No one knocking on the door. No one standing at the window. It was as if the man had never been there at all. One of the officers frowned. "The footprints lead up to your door," he said, "but there aren't any leading away." A cold shiver ran down my spine. The officers assured me they would increase patrols in the area, but their expressions told me they didn't have much else to offer. After they left, I stood by the door for a long time, unable to move. The house was quiet, but somehow the silence made me even more uneasy. There was no guarantee that next time wouldn't be tonight. It was my first night staying alone in my new apartment. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small 1-bedroom in an older building downtown. The kind of place where the walls were thin and the pipes made strange noises at night. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I heard it. A faint scratching sound. At first, I thought it was coming from the walls, probably mice or something. But then I realized it was coming from the air vent near the ceiling. I sat up, staring at it. The sound stopped. Trying to shake it off, I turned off my phone and rolled onto my side. That's when I heard something else. A deep, raspy breath. I turned my head slowly toward the vent. My room was dark, but the moonlight outside cast just enough of a glow for me to see it. A pair of eyes, staring at me from inside the vent. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just lay there, frozen in place, as whatever was in there watched me. Then a voice, hoarse and whispering, "I see you." I bolted out of bed and ran for the door, grabbing my phone as I sprinted out of the apartment. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They searched the vents and found a loose panel in the ceiling, leading to a crawl space. Inside, they found a dirty sleeping bag, food wrappers, and a knife. Someone had been living in the vents, watching me, waiting. Even after the police assured me that he was gone, I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't. For nights after, I barely slept. Every creak, every rustle of the pipes sent my heart racing. I found myself staring at the vents, half expecting to see those eyes again. The worst part, they never caught him. Whoever he was, he vanished. The police said he must have been using the crawl space to sneak in and out of different apartments, staying just long enough to watch, maybe longer. I moved out the next week, threw out everything that had been in that apartment. But even now, in a different city, in a different building, I still find myself checking the vents before I go to sleep. Sam and Lisa had just moved into their new apartment when the weirdness started. At night, they'd hear whispers too faint to make out the words, but constant. "Lisa, you hear that?" Sam whispered one night, pulling the covers over his head. "Yeah, but it's probably just the neighbors. Old buildings, thin walls, you know?" Lisa tried to brush it off. Then came the knocking, not from the front door, but inside the walls. One night, Sam finally snapped. "All right, enough. Who's there?" Silence. Then a low voice. "Let me out." Lisa screamed. They bolted from the apartment that night and never came back. Weeks later, a maintenance worker opened a sealed-off crawl space behind their bedroom wall. Inside, a decayed, twisted figure, mouth frozen in an eternal scream. Even after moving to a new place, the fear never left them. Lisa would wake up in the middle of the night, certain she heard whispers again. Sam couldn't look at walls the same way they all felt, hollow. They told themselves it was over, that it was just an old, terrible secret hidden away for years. But deep down, they both knew something had been trapped there for too long. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't done looking for a way out. Moving in together was supposed to be exciting. A fresh start, a new chapter. My girlfriend and I had just settled into our new apartment, and after a long day of unpacking boxes and arranging furniture, we were both exhausted. That night, we decided to wind down with a bottle of wine and a movie. She made it about halfway through before falling asleep on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder. I smiled, carefully scooped her up in my arms, and carried her to the bedroom. After tucking her in, I turned off the lights and got ready for bed myself. That's when I noticed it. At first, it was just a feeling, an odd sense that something was off. Then my eyes landed on the bedroom mirror. It reflected the room perfectly. The bed, the nightstand, the window, everything was exactly as it should be, except for one thing. In the reflection, my girlfriend was awake. She was sitting up in bed, staring at me. My breath caught in my throat. My mind scrambled for an explanation. Maybe I was just tired, or maybe it was some trick of the dim light. But the longer I looked, the more certain I became. She was watching me. I spun around to look at the real her. She was still lying there, completely still, her breathing slow and steady, fast asleep. I turned back to the mirror. The reflection had changed. She was smiling now. Not a normal smile, too wide, too unnatural. Her lips stretched far beyond what should have been possible. And then, with slow, deliberate movement, she raised her hand and waved. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. My pulse pounded in my ears as I grabbed the closest object I could find, a book from the nightstand, and hurled it at the mirror. It didn't shatter. The sound of the impact jolted me out of my frozen state, and I lunged for the blanket, yanking it over my head like a terrified child. I didn't sleep at all that night. I couldn't even bring myself to glance in the mirror again. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, making everything feel normal again. My girlfriend woke up, stretching with a sleepy yawn, completely unaware of the nightmare I had endured. Over breakfast, I hesitated before telling her what had happened. I expected her, to be at least a little unsettled. Instead, she just laughed. "You drank half a bottle of wine last night," she said, shaking her head. "You probably just imagined it." I wanted to argue, to insist that what I saw was real, but the logical part of my brain told me that maybe, just maybe, she was right. Maybe it had been a trick of the mind, a product of exhaustion and alcohol. But I wasn't willing to take any chances. That afternoon, I took the mirror down and threw it away. Still, I can't shake the feeling that I made a mistake. Because sometimes, when I pass by a reflective surface, a window, a glass door, even my own phone screen, I catch glimpses of something that shouldn't be there. A pair of eyes watching me.